All right, welcome back to Room 237, and it's time to finish off the trilogy. My second favorite film trilogy of all time, Planet of the Apes with War for the Planet of the Apes, 2017. I say second favorite trilogy, only second to The Godfather. But one thing this does have over Godfather is each three films gets consistently better as they go on. Whereas Godfather, perfect, even more perfect, not so great. But I am a huge sucker for Godfather. But this Planet of the Apes trilogy is right up there, and all three are fantastic. So after I saw Dawn for Planet of the Apes, which I thought was a superior sequel, fantastic movie. I saw they were doing a third. I could not wait. I kept checking websites for information for when it was coming out, teaser trailers, any sort of information on it. It came out in 2017. I did see this in theaters, and I am glad I did because this movie is epic. It's epic, but in a very different way. The action is... because it's a very different kind of movie. The action is definitely put more towards the very, very end of the film. Not necessarily a whole third act, but the very end of the film. And it is a very bleak movie. You can definitely tell all of its inspirations, which this is going to sound crazy, but first of all, any third movie in a franchise or trilogy, very rarely is it as good as the first two. I can't think of any that is the best one of the bunch, other than this. But also, if someone were to ask me how was it and what is it like, it would sound crazy because I would be like, well, it's a mixture of every war movie you've ever seen, like Apocalypse Now, Full Metal Jacket, stuff like that. Or a tiny nod to Full Metal Jacket. Mostly like Apocalypse Now. Big escape movies like The Great Escape or Escape from Alcatraz. Along with like a World War II internment camp movie. Along with Schindler's List, Passion of the Christ, but with apes. That sounds nuts. James Rolfe said the same thing. But it sounds crazy, but it really does go there. Now, again, it was directed by Matt Reeves, so it is in very good hands. It looks fantastic. The CGI on the apes for this one, hands down the best CGI I've ever seen. I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, but I mean, like, the fur or the hair on the apes looks the best out of all three. You can see, like, especially on Maurice, there's a close-up of his face where you can see all the fine hairs on his face, all the pores. It looks like apes are there. It really does. Doesn't look like real apes, if that makes sense. But it looks like... It doesn't look like CGI. This one was solely written by Mark Bomback and Matt Reeves. They were actually given a release date before the script had even been written. They didn't even know where they were going to set it. They didn't know if it was going to pick up right where Dawn left off, or if it was going to be a period of time after. But Matt Reeves did say that war is inevitable. This is the film we have to show it in. It's going to be the final conflict between humans and apes. This is going to be the future-defining battle or event for the future of the planet. And I guess they watched like 25 films for inspiration, like, you know, Bridge on the River Kwai, The Great Escape, the whole vengeance, war-weary character going after a colonel with, with friends. He was very heavily inspired by that aspect from Outlaw Josie Wales, Apocalypse Now. Woody Harrelson was inspired by Apocalypse Now and Colonel Kurtz from that movie. So, I mean, it has all these, like, bleak films. It's a very bleak movie. But, and Reeves had said Rise was, how he becomes a revolutionary. Dawn is how he becomes a great leader in the hardest of times. This is how he becomes a seminal figure in ape history. How he goes from being a leader to someone like Moses. Which by the end of it, he quite literally is Moses. Like the other two, I didn't really get too in depth with Dawn. I did with Rise for callbacks to the original film or original series. Because, like the previous two, it is sort of following like the events of Conquest and Battle for Planet of the Apes in the original series, but again, not a complete remake. But it has events from Battle where it takes inspiration from. And Andy Serkis, I mean, there were people, rallying for him to get a Best Actor nomination. He didn't, which is considered one of the greatest snubs in Oscar history. Again, I know how they look at motion capture as like an animated kind of performance, even though all the motions and emotions and vocal, everything that the characters do, the actor is doing. And there are parts in this that even through motion capture and all the CGI over it, Andy Serkis pulls off some acting that I don't even think actors without anything on their face could pull off. Especially the turning point in the film. Because also, this film has Caesar going from trying to lead his apes out of a war to really becoming, there's an event that makes him the worst that he could possibly be. That takes him to the furthest reach of where he possibly couldn't come back from, and lose his apes, and how he has to earn them back. So Reeves had to think about what event could pretty much turn Caesar into Koba, and then have him become Caesar again. That alone is a great story. And like in my review for Dawn, I made the comparison of how it's like Godfather 2, and how I can make a whole video on comparisons of this to Godfather, or connections that I've made myself. With this, one, it's way better than Godfather 3 as a movie and as a sequel and closing chapter. But, like in Godfather 3, where Michael is haunted by... I'm debating whether I want to spoil it or not, but I'm sure people know. By a murder he has to commit in Godfather 2. And it haunts him throughout the third film. So, I'm going to say spoiler warning for this right now, but this is my favorite of the whole trilogy. Might be my favorite Apes film altogether. It is very epic. It is definitely more... The first two had the final act that was all action-packed with build-up before. This, I would say, has less action. I mean, it has explosions and stuff like that. But it is definitely more of the slow burn sort, like an internment camp film. It's like a revenge concentration camp type film, war zone film. But all the action is pushed towards the very, very, very end. And I think it's where there was 2 highly successful films before it, with plenty of action in each. It can take its time with this very low-key, I don't even know if that's the right word, but kind of sort of subtle, and that's not even the right word, less action movie for a closing chapter. I don't really know how I want to say that, but plenty of action in these 2, where it can tell a story, a compelling, epic closing chapter with less action, but still plenty of it towards the end, if that makes sense. Joining the cast, we have Steve Zahn, who people will know from comedies like Saving Silverman, Daddy Daycare, Sahara with Matthew McConaughey. He plays Bad Ape in this. And there are parts in this where, Bad Ape as a character, or something that Rocket does towards the end, where if it was in any other movie, it would be silly and stupid. But the way it's handled in this, it does it well. But I'll get to them. So I'm going to say spoilers starting now, but I can't recommend it enough. But if you haven't seen any of them, definitely check out the entire trilogy. This will be a very satisfying, emotional, bleak, but very well done, beautiful looking closing chapter and conclusion to the trilogy. So spoilers now. I don't want to spoil this. It opens up 2 years after the events of Dawn. We do get opening captions about, 15 years ago, there was scientist, virus that led rise to apes. At the dawn of a new civilization, rogue ape Koba led to it. The war has begun. So it's 2028. Caesar's 20 years old, but he is all gray. I mean, I think Rocket and Maurice are older, but I mean, he is all white and gray, like in the face, just from stress and grief. And also, I actually have him in this. Like, he is just a weary, just angry mess throughout this whole movie. But in the very beginning, he is hoping for peace. And we see these soldiers out in the woods, and they all have, like, Full Metal Jacket helmets that says, like, they all say something like, bedtime for Bonzo, monkey killer. They all say something. Ding Dong, Dead Kong. I don't know if it says that, but they all have some sort of dead ape pun sort of on their helmet. And they get to an area where they see apes on horses, and we see a gorilla behind them with an Alpha Omega symbol branded on his head, which is a nod to the second film in the series, Beneath the Planet of the Apes, with the telepathic mutants that worship the nuclear bomb Alpha Omega. Which I will say, Beneath and Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes are the only 2 films out of all of these, out of all 9, that I dislike. I like or love all the other ones. So there are apes that have the Alpha Omega brand because that's what this sort of renegade group of soldiers is called, Alpha Omega, led by the Colonel, played by Woody Harrelson. And these apes that are helping them are called donkeys, which is a reference to Donkey Kong. Which we find out that they were Koba followers. They hate Caesar. Or they dislike Caesar, followed Koba, but are also helping with the military, hoping to be spared after the war. This war breaks out. They're shooting at apes up in this compound. This one ape with the war paint rides his horse away, doing this ape call. And I love this shot where there's the fog. We see all these apes on horseback with torches, like, wow. They've made some sort of smoke bomb out of something that they're flinging at the soldiers. They made some sort of bow and arrow that are just killing all these soldiers. We see apes getting shot and taken down. A couple soldiers get taken. And so we see all these dead apes. The ones that are alive have like tree bark and twine around like their wounds. The females still have like the veils. But we get this POV shot of all these apes sort of like bowing and standing as the camera does this panning shot through this ape compound. And we see it's Caesar. And Caesar is followed by, I think, Luca, a gorilla Luca, and this albino gorilla named Winter. This is the first time we've seen him. They have like 3 soldiers that they've taken prisoner and this one donkey. And this is when Caesar sort of gives the speech for the trailer, like, I did not start this war. And his speech is now perfect. He's not like this sort of like, apes, human, where he has to like fight to get the words out. He can speak perfectly fine. He's like, I did not start this war. The ape that did is dead. His name was Koba. I killed him. He tried to kill me. He's like, I've offered peace. And then they ask about their donkey. And he's like, they follow Koba. They fear what I will do to them if they come back or whatever. And he's like, Caesar says, I have a message for you to give to your colonel. And he ties them on horse, sends them away, and tells Maurice that they are the message. Send them back alive. Maybe the colonel will know they don't want to kill. But he also says, tell him to leave us the woods. Killing can stop. All the apes are outside. It's raining. And even like when they're all wet, like Caesar looks white almost all over. But again, just the effects on the fur looks even better than in Dawn. And Caesar tells Maurice, Koba still haunts us. And Maurice says, he couldn't be helped. None of us could have known the darkness that was in him. And then they hear like this call, like one of those horns that, I don't know what you call them. They go and see who it is, and it's Blue Eyes and Rocket, who have been on a journey to potentially find a new home. Oh, but before that, Winter takes the traitor gorilla away, but he comes back all bloody, saying he beat me and ran away. So they're having like a council inside this cave, this cavern. And Bright Eyes and Rocket says that they found a place, but it's a long journey through a desert. Winter tries to say that we should leave tonight. They're like, can't be done. There's too much to do. And then that night, Caesar is sleeping with his wife Cordelia, and he sees green lights through a waterfall. All open, there's a waterfall. Obviously soldiers. And the score, I think the score for this part was inspired by and retooled from the original film when Dodge, Landon, and Taylor are like walking through the desert when they first land on the planet. I could be wrong, but or it's similar to that score. So Caesar starts looking around. One of his guards, Luca, which I think Luca, I always think of Luca Brasi for the first Godfather film, because he was a big guy. He beats a soldier, and then some of the apes get together, and Caesar hears on the radio, King Kong is dead. So there's this great scene of him like running through like the corridors of the cavern, like huffing and puffing with anger and rage. Gets back to the waterfall, and he sees the Colonel, who's got this black and green face paint. Looks just like Apocalypse Now. About to leave through the waterfall, and the Colonel looks away at something, looks back at Caesar. And this is one of the parts where I said, actors not in motion capture could not pull this off. This slow, like the music is just drums, like do-do, do-do. He slowly looks over, and he sees that Cordelia and Blue Eyes are dead. They've been shot, they're all bloody, they're dead. And there's this up close of Caesar, like just the shock, grief, anger, sadness, all at once. The way Andy Serkis portrays that through the motion capture is remarkable. Like, easily one of the best, or the best, just looks of grief and shock I've ever seen in a film. And the fact he did it through motion capture and CGI is incredible. So then takes his gun, his rifle, there's the slow motion rolling out of the way. Other apes come in, he backs out of the waterfall, goes up. Caesar does this great, like, charges, jumps off the ledge of the waterfall, grabs the rope, he's climbing up. Rope gets cut, he falls. And then, as we find out, Winter is missing. They think he betrayed them. They can't find Cornelius. Caesar is distraught. But then Caesar finds Cornelius. And then the next day, Caesar, gives Cornelius to a female named Lake, who was Blue Eyes' mate. Because now they're leaving. He says, soldiers could come back. This is your best chance to get out of the woods. And, follow Rocket. He'll take you to the new home. And everyone's like, you're not coming with us? And he's like, no, I can't. He's going after the Colonel. So the event of his wife and son being killed by the Colonel, that's what turns him into Koba. He is now the bloodlust, rage-filled, vengeful, revenge-driven ape that Koba was. And it's that path he takes that is going to set the stage for the rest of the film. And how it's going to make everything worse, and how he has to turn it around. So that was the event that happens to turn him into Koba. Bring him from Caesar to Koba. But of course, Luca, Rocket, and Maurice all offer to come with him. Luca for, intel based on what his guards know about the soldiers, Rocket for backup, and Maurice for guidance. First place they come to is like this hut. There's a guy with, wood. And he's like, I'm just going to put these down. But he goes to grab a pistol, and then he's just shot. Just without warning. And it was Caesar with the rifle, just, arbitrarily. Well, not really arbitrarily, but ready to kill whoever he has to. He doesn't even care. And the look on the three apes, Maurice is like shocked, like, you killed a human. Rocket is has like a neutral look on his face, and Luca has this like, you did what you had to do. I don't know if that was the intention, that's just something I noticed. And then that's where they meet this young girl that we saw in the trailer. Caesar couldn't really care less. He has Rocket and Luca look for anything that they can collect and bring. Food, water, they find binoculars. Maurice takes a liking to this girl. And this is one of my favorite scenes as far as just how great the effects are in this film. She's laying in like a bottom bunk, and Maurice picks up a doll and gives it to her. And she tries to speak. We see that she's had like a bloody nose at some point. She can't speak. She's trying, but it's just like little noises that come out. But when we get the up close of Maurice, I mean, you can see every little hair, pore in his skin, shininess of his skin, the wetness around the nose. It looks like an ape. It looks like a real ape is standing there. It doesn't look computerized at all, and I marvel at that every time I see it. So he gives her this doll, which I've read that it's a nod to the baby doll from the original film, but it's pretty common, dolls. Caesar just assumes leave her, regardless of no one being there to take care of her, like her father figured that he just shot. But Maurice says, I understand we can't take her, but I cannot leave her. So they take her. They come across some military stopover. They go in this one tent, they find Winter. He's got the Alpha Omega brand. They get out of him that he did betray them with the donkey that Winter took out back. He said he promised me, my life would be spared if I told them to tell the colonel where you were all hiding. And when he says, can you please forgive me, Caesar tells him that my wife and son are dead because of you, because you did that. And then some soldiers walk by and feared he would make a noise. They hold him down. Luca and Rocket each have like limbs, like side of limbs. Caesar's got his arm around his throat and his face. And you can just see the anger in Caesar's face. That when they finally let go, his body just goes limp. Caesar actually killed him out of anger. So that night when they're sitting around a fire, Caesar hallucinates the vision of Koba, who again was played by Toby Kebbel. He came back for 2 cameos. Who tells him, ape, not kill ape. And it's a great look into Caesar's mind because he has the guilt over killing Koba, the guilt over killing Winter, but he knows he still had to kill Koba for the safety of the apes, but now he's slowly becoming him because he just killed Winter out of rage. So then they're moving along, and I really like the snowy setting of this film. It's very different from the first two, and you get to see the effects do different things. Like snow and wind blowing around, like you see their hair moving all around. They see this military truck stop, take people out, and they hear gunshots. And they go and look, and there's 3 bodies with, covered in snow that's been falling. They got blood on them. They take the masks off, and they realize one of the guys that shot was one of the ones that they let go in the beginning. They try to ask him what happened, but now he can't speak. So Caesar kills him out of mercy. Maurice puts it together like he can't speak like her. There's similarity. They get to this other area. They climb a tower, and they look down and they see, we see back to someone in a big parka going through their bags on the horses. Luca looks down and does this incredible, giant, like a gorilla roar. That sounds awesome. I will call BS on this. While a chimp probably can ride a horse, I don't think a horse can hold a chimp, a silverback, and still run through snow. Draft horse or not. But I'm not saying it's a flaw. It's just something I noticed. I don't hold it against the film. Because the person they see digging through all their stuff hops on a horse and leaves. They all get on their horses and follow. But of course, Rocket and Luca have to share a horse. End up at this rundown ski resort. The person comes out with his hands up, and they realize it's another ape. It's this skinny, hairless ape that goes by the name Bad Ape, because that's what he was called at the zoo. Bad Ape. He's voiced by Steve Zahn. And I will say, the character of Bad Ape, he is cute and funny, but they really took a big risk for him because he could have become Jar Jar Binks. He could have become the annoying comic relief. And in a way, he is the comic relief. I mean, there are parts when they're sitting around this fire, and he runs around the corner to get something, and he slips. We hear like a loud sound, and he yells, "I'm all right." That kind of humor. But they were very because of course a movie as bleak as this, you got to have some sort of levity. So they probably figure put all the humor and levity into this character, and they knew exactly what to do with him. They knew not to make it overbearing, not make him over the top, silly and stupid. Moments like that are very few and far between. He tells a story how he came from the zoo. Humans get sick. Ape gets smart. Zoo gets, he leaves. He runs. He sees human zoo, which is like a containment area, like a military base. And like the food they're eating are like survival packs from a military border stopover, which before they killed Winter, he said the colonel's going to the border to meet other soldiers. So Caesar puts that together. He's like, you need to take us to this border. And of course, Bad Ape's like, no, can't go. And he calls it human zoo. And there's this humorous part where the little girl keeps picking something up and looking at it, and he keeps don't touch, that's mine. And then he finally gives it to her, thinking if he gives it to her, they won't make him leave to show them where human zoo is. And when they show what it is, it's an emblem for a Chevy Nova. So it's like, where they're going with this. Nova, reference to Taylor's mate in the original film. Not the same character, but Nova. But then, later that night, Bad Ape is asking about the girl, and Caesar says she has no one else. Asks Caesar if he has a child. He says, I have one. The other was killed. Was it a soldier? Yes. I had a child who was killed by soldiers. You think if I take you to human zoo, you'll be able to find who did it? Caesar says, maybe. Well, then I'll take you. So the next day, and you get a sweet little scene with Luca picking a flower off a tree and putting it in the girl's ear. Bad Ape comes out with a vest and snow hat. He gives like a thumbs up. They really treaded dangerous ground with Bad Ape, and if it was any other movie, it would have killed it. But they used him to their advantage. They needed levity, and they got it right with him by not making him overbearing. So they can see from a distance where they are. They're on like a cliff. Caesar runs down. He's like, stay here. I'm going to go see if I can see what's going on. There's soldiers there. They hold Caesar at gunpoint. Rocket jumps in, beats the soldiers. Luca comes in to attack another one, but he had his bayonet up. So he gets stabbed with it. Dies. There's a moment with the girl who takes the flower off, puts it on him, and cries. It is at this time Maurice says, Caesar, this has to stop. It's gone too far. It's not too late to catch up with the others. Let's just go to our new home. And Caesar says he must pay for what's happened. It's at this point Maurice says, now you sound like Koba, which deeply enrages Caesar. And he says, it was a mistake to bring all of you. Join the others. I'll go alone. And the look on Maurice's face, I want to get the a motion capture actor. Karen Conoval. But yeah, so she must be the a motion capture. The look on Maurice's face is like I'm just saying, but no, I didn't mean it like that. Just please come with us. But he goes down to where the soldiers were, and he sees these things, like these giant wooden X's. And as he walks by, he sees their apes tied to them, which could be a callback to like the scarecrow type figures in the original film on the edge of the Forbidden Zone. And, they're all dead. They got their war paint on. And Caesar is distraught and sad. He finds one that's barely alive, cuts him down, and he says, we were out in the desert. We were ambushed. The colonel had madness in his eyes. We thought they were going to wipe us all out, but they brought us here, saying they were going to put us to work before they killed us. Caesar asks, what kind of work? Is my son still alive? And that's when the ape starts to die. And just the look on Caesar's face and the way Andy Serkis plays him, trying to fight back tears, but also ask questions like, wait. But that's when one of the donkeys comes up, knocks him out. He wakes up in like a hangar somewhere on the military base and meets the colonel. I like this opening line where he's just like, goes through all the great leaders of history. Like someone like Lee, Custer, Sitting Bull. I guess you're not much of a reader. I really like Woody Harrelson in this role. It's definitely someone you're supposed to hate, but you buy him as like a military colonel as well. Caesar, of course, he's got like this chained collar on. He's trying to get to him, but he lets the colonel speak. He's like, saying, who did I kill that night? Saying, like, we came across your herd. I was surprised you weren't there. Caesar threatens, I came for you. Who did I kill that night? My wife and my son. Sorry, I was there for you. But then he says, all right, let's take him. So they take him out into like the main holding area, put him in his own cell, where across the way he sees all his apes put together in like a group cell. And I really like that moment of realization, because it's at this time where Caesar has sunk his lowest and he has to start his redemption. He looks around and all the other apes turn their back on him. And he just says, "What have I done?" And it's just a great moment where you're trying to get this arc of this great leader who has to, something tragic that sends him down to the abyss, as far down as he can go, and then he has to redeem himself. So that's the turning point, where he first sees the Colonel killed Cornelia and Blue Eyes, to this point. Those are the turning points of him descending to try and, now he has to have redemption. And so the work is they got to move all these rocks around and build a wall. There's this very skinny orangutan that is really weak. He drops something, creates damage. As punishment, one of the donkeys has to carry him out and whip him. And Caesar, watching him get whipped, you can see the pain on his face, and he just yells, "Leave him!" To where the Colonel has Caesar being whipped, that he takes every hit. The Colonel tell them to get back to work. He won't. Lake had already told him that they've had no food and water since they've been there, because they use sign across the walkway in their own cells. He tries to say, give him food and water. Takes pistol out. You see it in the trailer. Starts counting down from 5, or else I'll shoot you if you don't say, get back to work. Then Lake picks up a rock, starts working again. They all start working. Then the Colonel, he's back up. Now, Caesar's put on the cross thing, but it's out in the middle of everything, not out in the woods. And he has another vision of Koba, where Koba says, "All apes die here." He's like, "No." He's like, "Yes, come with me." But then we see it's just a donkey. Donkey cuts him down. It says, "Colonel wants to see you." With that opening riff to "Hey Joe" by Hendrix plays. So "Hey Joe" is played in the background through this whole scene where Caesar's taken to meet the Colonel. And this is good exposition, because we finally learn what this whole human being unable to speak is about. Which first they negotiate over, give apes food and water, finish their work. If they get food and water, they can finish their work. Caesar says, "You're a man of no mercy." So the Colonel's like, "You want me to tell you about mercy?" He talks about how his son was part of this war. Then one day he just stopped speaking, supposedly lost his mind. They thought the war was too much. That's what his caregiver thought before he stopped speaking. Then this doctor had a theory before he stopped speaking, was that the simian flu that every human survivor still carries has somehow mutated. That takes away the higher thinking of humans. It makes them more primal. Their ability, their speech, their higher thinking. It makes them very animalistic and primal. Which, one, I think is very smart, because if we're working up to the original film as far as prequels, we do got to show why humans resorted to their primal state. Why can they no longer speak? Why are they like animals now? And they made simian flu part of that. It's the next step to wiping out humanity. First wave, it kills everyone. Next wave, it just takes away their humanity. And so the Colonel tells him, no, soldiers from the north are not coming to help me kill you. They're coming to have war with me, because I'm willing to kill anybody to spread this contagion from happening. Which I'm guessing, even though every human is a carrier, you can still spread this mutated version. Killed my own son, my own men, their families, burnt all their clothes. It says, the whole human race has built to this point. No matter what we do, you're going to replace us. You're stronger, smarter. There's really nothing we can do, but at least we can go down fighting, is what the Colonel says. It was a great scene between the two of them where eventually he says, if killing your son means he would never take over your throne, then I'm glad I did it, which enrages Caesar. But then the next morning, these trucks come in, and they all get food and water. Which first, let me back up. After Caesar gets put in the cell for the first time, we see the Alpha Omega meet, which is as Schindler's List as it gets, because all the troops come in, they do their Alpha Omega chant, we are the beginning, we are the end, ha ha ha. And Woody Harrelson comes out on the balcony, no shirt, just straight razor shaving his head, and then you get this great, soldiers going into the cells to whip and get all the apes to go out to the wall with this really old version of the national anthem being played. It's a very powerful scene. It's definitely like an American internment camp looking. It's very Schindler's List. Then we get the scene with the rock building, the whipping, everything else I just said. So they all get their food, and so Maurice, Rocket, it's just Maurice, Rocket, Bad Ape, and the girl who are left. And they find this hole that goes down like this tunnel. And, we see graffiti like Ape Apocalypse Now. Another reference for Apocalypse Now. And they find out these tunnels will go right into the compound. So, I just want to see. But while the apes are getting food and water, Caesar's strapped up on the thing. And Donkey goes up with the bucket to offer him water, since all the other apes are getting water. Caesar goes for a sip, and Donkey just dumps it all over him. It's already freezing out. So then later on, we see Caesar. He's got frost and ice all in his hair. He's shivering. They cut him down. He just limply falls, and he says if he's alive in the morning, put him to work with the others. And it's at this time the girl just goes right in while Bad Ape doesn't stop her, and Rocket and Maurice are going through the tunnels. So she goes in. The other apes call her over. They give her like a bucket of water. She gives it to him. She pets him while he drinks. They call her over again. They give her a handful of seeds that they're eating. Gives it to him. So this is sort of Caesar's rebirth and appreciation for humans. And then, all the other apes start doing this to show they're on his side again. Then she does it. But soldiers are coming. She has nowhere to hide. So Rocket says he has an idea where he just walks into the compound doing his woo, 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 loud, obnoxious ape stuff. Which him and a donkey get in a fight. Colonel's like, are there any others out there? Men sweep the area. They throw Rocket in with the other apes. And he's signing with Caesar like, you feel better? Good. Now let's talk about getting out of here. And then he just does the apes together strong. So the next day, it shows Rocket and Caesar working with the other apes like nothing's going wrong. But we see them counting their steps from like the gate to the young's cage to the main cage, signing off to the distance Maurice and Rocket so they can count the steps in the tunnels and dig up. I thought that was a smart idea. But Maurice is clearing out a blockage of one of these giant, like, tunnels have, like, sewage drains or whatever. There's all this blockage. He's clearing it out. And then it starts to flood. So they can't dig to get to the children. But they did just dig under the ape's main cell. And this is another scene that they really had to tread lightly with. Because if it was any other movie, it would have killed it. It just goes to show how good this movie is. Because it makes a scene like this work. They dug to the main cell to get the apes out. But they need a distraction for the guard up on the watchtower. So we see the guard standing there and we just see all this steaming shit hits him in the back of the neck. He's like, hey, who did that? And he goes down there. He thinks he found the one, but then he gets hit with another one. He turns around and we see Rocket just doing like that baseball. Like apes throwing shit and then doing like the baseball catching thing. It's like, any other movie that would have just killed it with how obnoxious it is. But they made it work. Which also, after Caesar gets fed by the girl and Rocket says, now we can work on getting out of here. It's the next day, and this is before we see them counting their steps. The Colonel goes to Caesar's cell and it's like, he's still alive. I guess put him to work. But he finds the girl's doll. And he looks at it and he's like, where'd this come from? It has blood on it. There is a deleted scene where the Colonel later on goes back to Caesar's cell. And he's acting kind of drunk and weird. Saying, I met a guy in the city who said he knew you. And he tried to tell me how he can prevent this whole thing from happening. Like, you're not the chimp. You're not the ape that started this war. And that's what Caesar says, Malcolm. So this deleted scene was going to tell us what happened to Malcolm, which is he tried to stop the war, but the Colonel admits that he shot him. So just another reason why Caesar would hate him. And then after that spiel, he kind of wakes up and he's like, what just happened? Like, that was weird. To kind of show that the new virus is taken over because of the doll he found. But I guess they thought it wasn't the right time to show he's been infected. It has to be at the right moment, which I'm glad they cut that out. Because one, it makes Malcolm's fate more ambiguous. And two, the reveal for when he does have the mutated strain is more impactful. So it's at this point there, while they were still digging Nova, the girl asked Maurice if she's an ape. You know, through like, am I ape? So that's when he takes the Nova thing out of her pocket, and just like Charlton Heston does in the original film, it's like, Nova, Nova, you are Nova. So they're able to get the adult chimps out. They got to get the children apes to climb on like the power lines above, jump down, then run out. So all the apes are out. They're running to safety. And this is when Rocket tells Caesar, all right, let's go. And he says, I can't. Maurice is right. I am like Koba. He couldn't escape his hatred, just like I can't escape mine. So he goes back into the Colonel's room. And here we find out he's been infected, which is Caesar goes to kill the Colonel. He's got the gun to his head. You know, the Colonel's laying there. He's reaching for a bottle of liquor. Caesar puts the gun to his head, and as he looks up, we see there's blood coming out of his nose and he can't speak. That's more impactful, because if they had kept that scene, we would know he's getting sick. But now we find out just as Caesar's about to get his revenge. But now it's taken from him because then the colonel sort of puts the gun here and clicks the hammer back, showing he wants to die. So there's no revenge to be had. Because he wants to die. Caesar would be doing him a favor. But also that shows that Caesar was saved from his own, because killing him would only make his hatred worse. So in a way, it did save Caesar as well. So Caesar puts the gun down because, better revenge to leave him in that state that he hates. But we do see that here that he does shoot himself. And so then here Caesar has to get out of the compound again, while there's guys out there with Gatling guns just mowing down apes. So Caesar goes to throw a grenade at the propane tank. He's shot by an arrow by Preacher, one of the guys that he let go in the beginning. Donkey, who's up on the wall with the guy with the Gatling gun, he sees everything that's going on. All these apes getting shot, Caesar getting shot with a bow and arrow. He has his redemption. He takes the grenade launcher that the guy's asking for, shoots Preacher just as he's about to shoot and kill Caesar. But then, of course, the guy sees it, shoots the donkey, but he had his redemption. Caesar's able to throw the grenade. It blows up, pretty much blows up the whole compound. Because also at this time, the other military forces come in. The war between them has begun. The apes are, there's people fighting the other soldiers, but other people are just shooting all the apes, getting out. Then after the explosion, all the other soldiers that came in are now cheering. To avoid the explosion, Caesar jumped in the hole through the tunnel and came out. Slowly, they all start noticing Caesar standing there. And just as one raises his rifle, we see this avalanche coming. So Caesar and all the other apes go up in the trees for cover. Avalanche comes in, covers the rest of the human threat. All the others, the compound, all the other soldiers, everything's covered in snow. So here, and Matt Reeves said he wanted to make Caesar go from a leader to like a religious figure, like Moses. Well, here he is Moses. He leads his apes through the desert to the promised land. And here I think it's the perfect ending, because they get to this pure oasis, perfect, untouched by humans. The threat of humans are now over. The military's gone. All that's left are people that will be rendered mute from the mutated virus. But Caesar sits with Maurice, and they just look at their apes just playing, frolicking, enjoying their new home. Caesar reveals to Maurice that he's been shot. Maurice kind of embraces it and says, son, in broken ape language, it's like, son will know who Caesar was, who Father was, and what Caesar did for us. So Caesar kind of goes limp, but he sits up. Get one last look of him smiling, looking at all his apes, enjoying their new home, knowing he led them to peace. And we just see a tear roll down, which I think is a nod to the very ending of Battle for the Planet of the Apes when we see the lawgiver tear. But that's more like a bleak tear, because that implies that Caesar's ideals never came to fruition. There's still conflict between humans and apes. Even though it doesn't look that way in the final scene, that's what that entails. Whereas here, he has a tear of finally knowing his apes are safe. It's a tear of pure bliss and peace and happiness. And he just kind of slumps over and dies. Maurice just kind of pets him, caresses him. And then the camera kind of pans up as all the apes stop to stand up and look at the Caesar that's just passed. I guess the ending kept changing. It used to end before we saw Caesar die, and then it was kind of as he starts to go down, and then finally, when he finally does die, because Matt Reeves wanted there to be closure. And I thought it was a great ending. I mean, Caesar's one of my favorite film characters of all time, and heroes. But there really is no other film that they could tell with him. They told his story. He led his apes through the entire threat of humans, and now they can thrive again. It was time for him to die. Of course, it sucks that he died, but I love this film to death. It's my favorite Planet of the Apes film, new and old. I absolutely love this movie. Very emotional. Again, the effects are outstanding. The best CGI effects I've ever seen. Andy Serkis really deserved at least an Oscar nomination. A lot of people are pissed that he didn't. I agree with that. I love the atmosphere of the film. It does have a very bleak feel to it, which would have made it easier for the Bad Ape character to feel so out of place. But Bad Ape and the shit throwing, those are two things that really could have halted and killed the film, but they really knew how to use it and make it work both for the story and just the tone of the film. Because that could have shifted the tone dramatically. But, it was a perfect way to end this amazing trilogy with these characters we followed for 3 films. Watch them grow, die, Caesar, Maurice, Rocket. Maurice was the first ape that Caesar met that he could talk to. And Maurice was the one that he died in front of. So it was very fitting. I thought, Woody Harrelson was the perfect villain, like a good final villain that just represented all the human hatred. I think this is a magnificent movie. It really does have everything you love about like a Vietnam or war in general movie. Like a World War II internment camp, but also Schindler's List, Passion of the Christ, because of what he goes through. I'm using that for lack of a better analogy. And, he did. Just Maurice's last words: "Your son will know who his father was and what Caesar did for us." Letting Caesar know that he will forever be a seminal figure in their history because of how he saved them. It's an excellent movie. I love everything about it. I can't think of one real flaw that I have. It is expert storytelling, as bleak as it is. Very rarely do you get a third film that's this fucking good. And yeah, I've gone on for quite a while, but War for the Planet of the Apes, I absolutely love it. My favorite of the bunch. I'm glad I saw it in theaters. Even though it sucks to see Caesar die, it was time. They told his story. It was the perfect closure for him. I might make a video about my predictions for the future. I know they're saying the next one is either going to be a complete reboot or it's going to continue it. We'll see. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed these reviews for the Planet of the Apes prequel reboot trilogy. I absolutely love these films. But anyway, thank you for watching.